All right, let's go ahead and get started with the 3:30 session. I'd like to introduce Alfie Frederick. He's going to be an undergraduate student at Fayetteville State University. He's going to be presenting Understanding the Impact of Urban Expansions on Accessibility through Network Analysis of Historical Road Data since 1825 in the city of Fayetteville.
Oh, good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, that's a lot of information right there in the title, and I don't know if that scared away people or brought them in here, but what I want to do is I just want to take you on a journey through data very quickly. So does anybody know where Fayetteville, North Carolina is? I mean, okay, hands down. What do you associate Fayetteville with? Anybody? There we go. Okay, so we know that much. So what you're looking at right now is a picture of Fayetteville. This is actually the 1825 McRae map. And if we zoom in very closely, you can actually see the reason why I enjoy looking at this map is because the street names are here. We also have physical features, property lines, and this is the clearest map of historical Fayetteville. And this is why I wanted to start this project based on this map. So two questions came into my head and Dr. Tran's head was, how did Fayetteville get the way that it did? Think about your childhood. Think about what it used to look like and what it looks like now. What has changed within that environment? Has it gotten bigger? Has it gotten smaller? The population, everything that you can think of, what has changed and what has led to that change? The shaping of it and development through this historical city. So I knew I wanted to start with this map, so I had to go and do some work. I looked online just like any millennial would, and I found a lot of maps. They're beautiful maps, but especially the Sanborn maps, you can see they're great. This has great information, but unfortunately, it's not all of Fayetteville. This was really old. I couldn't make it out. So I said I needed to hit the ground running. I needed to go and search Fayetteville. I went to the Airborne Museum. I went to the Transportation and Railroad Department. And unfortunately, they said, have you checked City Hall? So I said, okay, let me go to City Hall. And I met a beautiful city engineer, Mr. Craig Allen. And he gave me another 129 PDFs. And trying to go through that, I was like, okay, here we go again. And so my next question is that, yes, you have a scanned copy, but how does that work in GIS? You have to georeference. So my first question is are the roads straight? You have a grid map. You can look in Winston-Salem right now, downtown. It's a grid network. New York, grid pattern. Charlotte, think of your business district. All of those are grid networks. So I need to make sure that if this was skewed, all of my data probably in the future is going to be skewed. And luckily, I was able to find this on North Carolina Maps Online. They did some of the work for me. Thank you. And yes, the roads actually do lined up. So I was like, great, I can go ahead and start my research on this. And so again, the objectives that we wanted to see is that we wanted to use the network analysis to go ahead and explain the impact accessibility from the furthest people. You can only have development if the people on the outskirts can get into the city. If not, they're going to go somewhere else. The next thing that we want to say, can they reach the city center? For a long time, until about the mid-'60s, everything that you wanted to do was in the center of Fayetteville. There weren't any Walmarts then. How long did it take them? We think about now, we don't even go to stores anymore. JCPenney's and Sears are all shutting down because we can just go to Amazon and have it delivered. And once again, what historical things have led to the development of it? So now I have these maps. What am I going to do with them? Well, it's time to do some mouse clicking, do some digitizing. And so again, here I go back to City Hall. Mr. Craig Allen, please help me, sir. And luckily, he actually had the Cumberland County 2017 road data. This is actually if you see, this is all of Cumberland County and kind of short, but somewhere over there, that's all of City of Fayetteville. And that was the key thing that I had to use when I was using my maps. If you look now, this is actually the annexation period. When you're working with paper maps, unfortunately, the older they are, the more illegible it is to read them. So I needed a basis to know where the county areas, or I'm sorry, correction, the city borders are. Another thing that I noticed is that cartographers, back then, you have to find out which works, because if you have one made from one person compared to another, they might be using a different scaling, or they've been like, you know what, he did that, I'm going to do something amazing, and they might change it up completely. And so what you're seeing right now, of course, is how accurate are your lines. That's the reason why I had the 2017 road data, to make sure that, yes, I am laying out this paper map, but I need to make sure that it is referenced properly. And unfortunately, some of the maps that I ran into is that we all know that you do have skewing the more you stretch it out. And my problem was that Fayetteville was great, but at the further you go past the Cape Fear River, it started skewing. It didn't mess up my city, but knowing that it started skewing on that side, I said, that might be some problems. And I had to start over one time. And just to let you know that I did over 5,140 lines and having to do the names of all those roads. So I didn't want to start over. So I made sure that I got it right correct. Of course, correctly labeling roads and name changes. That's a great thing, because I learned about the Scottish influence. And if roads close, if you want to do your data like, hey, I'll just do it off of street names. Well, the spelling might change, or they'll get rid of that road completely and move it somewhere else, depending on who has the money to pay for a street sign. And once again, we're working with pixelation. So then I had to go back to City Hall and get some paper maps, because I had to label things properly to make sure that what I was seeing on the computer was really what I was seeing on the map. And so now to the fun part, drawing, which everybody likes to do. Let's get into map building. So what you're seeing right now is a beautiful color coding of the clipping that I did based on the maps that I have. This is the grid pattern that I was talking about. This is Fayetteville, North Carolina. I did that through just grouping the annexation periods together. There we go. And just take a walk with me. This is a beautiful 1825, 29. 41, we're seeing a push. We still have this grid pattern formation going up, but if you're seeing, you're seeing the expansion pushing. Here is 56. Now, the thing that got me the most is that you have this straight line, and some of you have heard about Fayetteville. That big gray area is Fort Bragg. You're now seeing this one large straight road going. Where is it going to? Where are these roads starting to curve a little bit, right? Think about neighborhoods. 69, this little area right here, we're starting to see residential areas pop up. And of course, this is what it looks like in 1980. So I have all this information, and now we have to push the data even more. We have to see where it's going to take us. So we did a little bit of a network analysis, and what you're seeing right now, excuse me, is just, this is actually the combination of the 1825 and 1929 annexations pulled together. And we did clipping. So just think about it like a birthday cake. Everybody likes cake in here. So what we did is that we did the extent and the clipping and the points to make sure that to show how people were able to get to a certain destination to the city center. Once again, generating multi-points in the city from different years for different points. So 2 questions that I said before. Can I even get to the city center where I live? Yes, you can. And here's the data. What you're looking at right now is the extent information. And if you're looking at it from the points that we have has actually increased, meaning that on the city edges, more people were able to access because there were more roads as time went on. How fast can I go there? Well, most decreased. This is normal. But me and Dr. Tran, we were just trying to figure out, wait, hold on, why is there an increase for the year of 29? And we had to go back and we had to look at it. It's due to road closures. That's another thing that when I was doing the information that I had to take a note of how many times roads either completely were erased or if it was due for construction. Anybody can think about it right now wherever you live. If a school comes in, or if they're annexing, or if there's a roadblock, it hurts your scheduling a lot. And that's basically what happened when we were doing this. But this example right here is just showing you a prime example of how it used to be like this, and then it's turned like that. And this was the incident from year 29, where this was here in 1929. It's not there anymore. And that's one of the reasons why it increased, and this is in 1980. And we had to double check. So what you're looking at now is that extent of that road was here. Now we have buildings. So that's the reason why, even though there are more roads, because we placed the building where that road used to be, you have to take an alternative route to get where you need to. Because now you just can't go straight down. You actually have to go around. Okay. So now that I have that information, I need to go ahead and back it up with history. What events have led to this? Well, what I wanted to look at is, all of us said Fort Bragg, right? Year 1941, the impact of, do you know what major national event happened at that time? Anybody? Starts with a W. Thank you, World War II. Okay, so at that time, Fort Bragg was the biggest military installation in America. So they are building like crazy. We can just compare to Fort Bragg like a big rabbit. I mean, we had people coming in and they were being shipped out. So there was a big focus on getting roads out, a lot of money being pumped in. And you can see between 1902 and the 30s that only 900 homes were built. Comparable in the 40s, it more than doubled that amount. And again, like I said before, this was the city center and how it's grid pattern and how it's actually moving out, making that push. Like what you saw with the network analysis, we had a sudden peak in roads. And now the population is starting to taper off. Infrastructure is going on. People are noticing like, hey, why do I need to go all the way down to the city center? I want something closer to me. So businesses started to do development. Utah Shopping Center was going on. Now we're seeing that people are starting to put in money on the outskirts of what we consider the major business district area. Schools and subdivisions, we also have to think about it. Fort Bragg, just because you're a soldier, you have to take in consideration that they're bringing their spouses. Not only are they bringing their spouses, they're bringing their children. And if they're nuclear families, which I can say most of them were at that time, they may also bring in their immediate family members as well. So where are you going to put all those people? You had to build more schools. So the interesting thing for me, because I'm in university right now, 14 public schools were made, but then they built another 18 schools and had to, do some more work on additional 8. Chamber of Commerce came in. They were like, okay, we're seeing a lot of development on the outskirts, but we need to bring that money back into the financial center. So what happens at that point? Well, redevelopment was in demand. Now we're seeing that they are starting to convert the single-style homes within the department. They're just like, okay, back at that time, it was pedestrian city. You can walk, you can travel, you can do whatever you want. But now we have cars on the roads. People travel everywhere. And we know that if you want to get something, you want to go to a shopping mall, you want all of it done, a one-stop shop. And that's exactly what they wanted to do in Fayetteville. So what we can say is like gentrification happened at that time. People started buying up homes and whatnot, and it actually started shaping where you would see neighborhoods. We're also thinking about income, the price of land, property also increasing around downtown. Vietnam era, just another war. The great thing about this for Fayetteville is that a lot of people actually stayed. So now we have financial stability in Fayetteville at this moment. And once again, you're seeing that surge, like it's just like, come here, Fort Bragg. It's coming up at the top here. And here we go to 1980. The biggest thing that I can say that actually brought in your Walmarts, your Kroger's, your big name brand is that, yes, you have Fort Bragg there, but they didn't have that interstate connection to travel and bring goods. Once that opened, it opened up a lot of opportunity for the city of Fayetteville. Okay, so conclusion. Everybody knows from basic geography, most towns built around a waterway. We know that. But the crazy thing is that unlike any other cities that I visited, it was Fort Bragg that shaped and developed Fayetteville. Without them, it wouldn't have had its population surge. Fayetteville has been made basically and primarily on annexation. Population growth will continue with the expansion of annexation and roadways throughout city boundaries. Prime example where I live in Fayetteville. When I was younger, we were not a part of Fayetteville. Come in high school, they're saying like, hey, now we have to pay income to the city of Fayetteville. And I'm just like, why? Because my school was in city of Fayetteville, but I lived on the outskirts. And so, yeah, that's great for my mom's mortgage, but now every single year she has to pay higher taxes. And this is another way that Fayetteville actually gets money to supply. Benefits of the research. I like to pat myself on the back just a little bit. The digitization wasn't there. If it was, I wouldn't have to do it. Modern day maps can be created. I mean, just looking at the vendors and stuff that they can do, I would love to take a walk with 3D glasses down, what Fayetteville looks like, in the city of 1825. That would be amazing for me. Listening of street names, seeing the historical growth of the Scottish influence, the African Americans just by changing a C to a K, how that arose. Tourism would be great, preservation of areas, and showing you can take this into other fields as well. What I personally understood from this is that racial density, especially coming from an HBCU, I didn't know that area within the 20s actually had a large group of African Americans that were predominantly wealthy. They were almost comparable to what you had at that time. And through where they put the roads and where they put the businesses, you started to see that fluctuation. The importance of Fort Bragg. Our military and understanding how city planning is changing downtown for economical growth. And I have to tell you, people at City Hall, you guys are beautiful people. Thank you so much. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Sources and acknowledgments. I do want to go ahead and say, I'm not even sure if they're here, but I do want to say people, the City Hall development services, they helped me out a lot. Of course, other professors and talking to a couple of old people growing up and getting their sights of, back in my time, this is what Fayetteville looks like. So that's pretty much it. Thank you very much. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Does Fayetteville have a history of urban renewal where there might have been whole streetscapes that were vaporized?
Yes.
Some sort of highway construction project or something else? And if so, how did you take that into account in the study?
Okay, that sounds I said yes so quickly that I only stuck to that one point. Sorry about that. For the first part, if I understand, have there been any areas that were wiped out completely? The first picture that I showed you of the 1825 map, that bottom area in 29 didn't exist anymore. It was completely gone, and that was because it was two townships at that time that actually merged together. And for some apparent reason, they were just like, we don't need this area anymore. We're going basing into agriculture and farming. And that's what they did. As far as highway and development part, no, not in large areas. Bits of neighborhoods that you saw, especially the I-95 area or downtown where they were taking out of those neighborhoods to change it to from residential to business areas. That's pretty much the extent that I saw. Yes, ma'am, in the back. Okay, great. Yes, ma'am. Oh, you mean 87, like Chickenfoot Road, that the one that you used to when Fort Bragg was open?
So until pretty recently, going from Spring to Lake, you could just go down, continue down.
Yes.
Now they shut that off. I'm just wondering, has there ever been any kind of past in your research where they had done that previously, where you just couldn't get through that?
No. They actually never needed to do that. It was only until, I hate to say, but everybody knows what happened. That's the only time. They were just like, you know what, we're going to heighten security, we're going to buckle down. Even when World War II came and for Vietnam, they never shut down those roads. Because the thing is they were more concerned about getting things into Fort Bragg, that was too much of an essential road for them to close it down. Unlike today, they have multiple ways of getting things in and out of Fort Bragg that they don't need it. And they didn't have as many gates available at that time as that they do now. Yes, sir.
Did you find any data on Fayetteville's original plank road? And if you did, was there any data available about how it influenced the growth of Fayetteville?
I do. But my clicker doesn't want to work. So I'll just thoroughly explain it. In 1929, Fayetteville was adamant about, let's just use plank roads, because that's all they knew. And if you look on the outskirts of South Carolina, there were railroads that were actually being developed at that time. The Yadkin Railroad actually came in until Colonel Lee actually came in. It failed. And then they were just like, they're losing money. So that's when they started moving into the railroad system. But before that, they were still using the plank roads up until like the late, I would say, I would even want to go ahead and question it because till 1920s. Because when Fort Bragg actually came, they had to use a gravel road to actually link downtown to Fayetteville. And that was early 1920s. So yes. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. You get a question? You get a question? We all get a question? No? Okay, thank you so much.